Hi friends, welcome to episode 55. It's -3. Most sensible people will be home. I didn't feel like coming in today, to be quite honest with you, because it is just so cold up here. Two woolly pulleys, one shirt, a t-shirt underneath, two coats on at the moment, and I still haven't put my overalls on. And it's gone 9 o'clock. I didn't feel like a 6 o'clock in the morning start, to be quite honest with you. So this is going to remain like this for the rest of this weekend. It's going to be either freezing or below freezing, and that's going to limit me a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little workshop inside the RT. I'm going to put a heater in there to try and get some of the chill off. It's not so bad when you stand in the sun. In fact, it's quite nice. It is really nice, actually. It's lovely. Yeah, everything around me is absolutely frozen. So anyway, slightly different start to the videos. Hopefully I'll get some work done this weekend if I'm not spending most of my time huddled around a kettle and a cup of coffee. So right, there we are. Should we get started then? So this genuinely turned out to be one of the hardest weekends that I've had probably in about a year and a half up here. As I said, it was absolutely freezing cold all weekend, and that limits what you can do. You can't really do much painting because the oil-based paints are not going to go off. You can't use water-based paints because they'll just freeze. And basically everything I touched was just stone cold, not very nice at all. So you start wondering why on earth I bothered going up there. But anyway, I do need to be getting on with the RT. So I had a small list of things that I wanted to do, and because of the extreme cold I ended up doing stuff inside the bus wherever I could. But there was one job that was a hangover from last weekend, and that was dropping the oil strainer out the bottom of the engine, and that was something I thought, well, I'll do that. Unfortunately, there was a lot more oil in the damn thing than I thought there was, so I ended up flooding the floor. But anyway, more on that later. Let's get started. This was always my plan for the deep winter months, was to basically camp out inside the bus. I've got a little heater that my brother brought up, so yeah, and it took some of the chill off, but not as much as I probably would have wanted. So anyway, yeah, set this little bench up in there, put some masking paper down. These are the wooden strips. I know they look like metal, but they're actually wood. These are the wooden strips that are due to go inside the bus. And there's also two unpainted strips. In fact, there's actually three there, although I can't see the third one at the moment. But there are three unpainted strips, and they are going to be used for going around the platform area. So I'm going to cut them, I'm going to paint them and then cut them to size in due course. You also notice just outside by RM1804 is the bench that I set up for painting the ceiling panels, although it was far too cold to attempt to do that. I thought I'd get a bit of a joke out of this. I did try to get AEC paint, but unfortunately AEC paint is not available. So I thought I'd make do with Leyland paint. Okay, yeah, it's nothing to do with Leyland, but I thought it was a bit of a laugh anyway. This is the wood primer for that wood that I'm going to paint inside the bus. Right, so having got it a fractionally over freezing inside the barn, look, I've got the saloon lights on there as well. They look quite nice actually, but I wish they were brighter. Luckily the sun came bursting through the open barn door, and it made things a little bit warmer in there, and the sun gave a perfect light as well. Right, now this paint was really cold and it wasn't flowing on how I wanted it to. So I ended up having to make a little sort of a smaller amount using some thinners, but it certainly didn't want to dry properly. So, but nonetheless, I thought I'd carry on anyway, leaving the heater. Just about to see the heater poking in there. Those two chairs, when my brother turns up, he always brings junk. Sorry, Daryl. But he said, oh, I've got a swivel chair for you. I said, what good's that? So anyway, yeah, it's now inside the RT, so that's going to have to chuck that out at some point. But anyway, yeah, so I did all of those bits of wood. Now, those plain bits that you see at the top, I then used the grey primer on them, and I really do like that grey primer. It's absolutely lovely. It goes on beautifully. But I brought this Leyland paint to do the main panels, but I thought what I'll do is I'll give it a try on the beading first to see how I get on before I sort of commit myself to doing those main panels. So anyway, there we are. Rightly, you wonder what on earth these 3 bits of wood are. They're critical bits of wood that go over the top of the platform, and they're almost impossible to remake. The top one, and then there's a small fragment at the bottom that looks like a dinosaur tooth. That's part of that top one. It looks like Daryl and I were wondering how they made these. And this top one looks like it's been made out of several pieces of wood, which is why it's snapped perfectly along that edge. Somehow they make, I don't know how they do it, Daryl would know more than I do, but they make some sort of ply out of it, I assume. Anyway, that was the condition that it was in on Saturday morning, and you notice that the paint has all bubbled up. That was because I put paint stripper on it on the previous weekend, and I basically put the paint stripper on it and then went off and left it. So that the remainder of that's now gone, although it did pose me a bit of a problem, because what you've got to do is you've got to, after you've done that, you've then got to wash the wood to make sure there's no more remaining paint stripper on it, or active paint stripper, and then give it a bit of a rub down and then paint it. And I really want to do that this weekend, but as you know, it's freezing cold. So what I did was I did actually wash it all off. I cleaned it all up, made it all nice and spick and span, and then I had to use the heat gun to dry it out. But it was very useful because the heat gun actually was able to warm my fingers up as well, which had lost all feeling. So I didn't take, apologies, I didn't take a nice picture of that after I'd done it. I'm sure I can do that in the next edition as I start putting everything else back together again. But those were critical bits, and I had thought I'd lost them. So yeah, that's progression on the ceiling. Before we move off the ceiling, there's these bits. These are metal, and I painted these, must have been 30 odd years ago, and I put them upstairs on the RT. And some have got this this funny blue, sort of black stuff that's appeared on them. So they all needed to be rubbed down again, and that's why I spent most of Saturday rubbing them down inside my nice warm area. Notice my apple at the end there, look. Yeah, apples and coffee was my main substance over this weekend. So all of these bits are now rubbed down. The paint is on its way. Ordered it up last week from Williamson's, based on the paint match that we've now got. So that should come in now. As soon as the weather improves, then I hope to start putting the top coats on these things. These panels will be sprayed, but the ceiling panels probably going to be rollered, I think, at this stage. So yeah, that does genuinely now conclude the ceiling. One of the great things about this bus preservation lark is the people in it. Here I am in the cafe with Mark Davis, who's the owner of RM158, and Peter Veer, who's got a couple of RMLs and a former London Transport lorry. Yep, so they're my neighbours, basically. And it was absolutely freezing, as you well know. What we normally do on a Saturday when the fish and chip shop's open, we'll go down the fish and chip shop, buy some fish and chips, and we'll sit in one or other of the barns and have our fish and chips. But it was decided that it was far too cold for that, so we decided to go to a local cafe and sit there. Unfortunately, this girl who's taking the picture, you can just about see in the mirror there, she did say she was rubbish with pictures, and at the very moment that she took that picture, I blinked. So you've got me looking like I've fallen asleep. But it was really nice to see Mark and Peter up at the barn on Saturday. Yeah, right, so I left the barn about 8 o'clock on Saturday night, and yeah, it was still freezing, no change there. So anyway, I really struggled to get warm at home, and I was sort of a bit in two minds, really. Do I bother to turn up on a Sunday? It's going to be carrying on being as cold as it was on Saturday, and I'm really limited at what I can do. So anyway, here's the weather forecast for that day. Anything from -4 to +2, although sort of +2 didn't feel much like it. So about 1500, I decided I'm pretty much going to go home. But anyway, there was some stuff that went on in between me arriving at 6 o'clock and me going home about 1500. So here we go. Right, you might recall that very many knowledgeable people, well, at least three of them, have said to me, be a good idea to have a look at the oil strainer on the RT and see what you find in there. So I thought, well, I'll embark on that project. So having filled the bus up, and this is a case of deja vu, unfortunately, having filled the bus up with oil about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm thinking, hey, done that, let's tick that off. Some of the oil that came out when I was doing the oil change was a bit of a cause for concern because it was much thicker than we expected it to be. So hence the reason why I asked a few people what their views were. And this kept coming up time and time. Take the oil strain off and have a look in there. Even the guy who's doing the injectors for me said, have you had a look at your oil strainer? And yeah, so I thought let's embark on that as a project. Now, I don't like generally laying underneath the RT. I hate doing it, but especially if there was ever an accident or anything like that. I mean, you're absolutely a goner. But and you can see that I've got it on that old wheel rim and a block of wood. That's what it's sitting on. The weight of the bus, that side of the bus, is sitting on there because I've got no wheel on this. On the near side of the RT. Now, the other thing is, you may notice there's loads of bolts on this thing, and typically, and I don't think this is the sort of the builders of the RT's fault, but yeah, why on earth use nearly 30 odd bolts when maybe, I don't know, maybe a 10 would do, but they just seem to use a huge amount of unnecessary bolts. Now, what I'd done was I drained the oil out the previous week, and I'd left underneath the bus a container to pick up any oil that happened to sort of drop out over the week. So I was fairly confident that there wasn't much oil in here, although I was about to be sorely disappointed when I finally managed to get this thing off. Yeah, I've had a bit of an ask around, and apparently this wasn't done on rotor. What they used to do was simply just drop the oil out, put fresh oil in, but they never actually ever undid these. So yeah, it was a bit of an interesting thing really to take this down. And I saw a photograph, thank you very much to Tim for sending me a picture, of what this actually looked like once it came out the bus. And I was really surprised as to how big it is. There's a, yeah, that bolt's just shot off over there. Another little point, I'm now very careful about, I can't find it now, I didn't realise it had gone there, but I did find it later on, don't worry. I'm now very careful that when I take bolts and bits and pieces off, I put them in one of these little containers. So there's containers for bits for the interior of the RT and, you know, panel pieces and bits for around the wheel arch. So I've got a little container for everything. You just got to remember sometimes which were the right bolts for which screws or nuts or whatever. So anyway, yeah, I decided that I will obviously take this off. Now, sorry about the torch pointing at camera. It's about to go a bit wrong, really. Yep, there we go. Well, did you see that? Even better, I'll do a freeze frame. Save you having to do it. Yeah, the look of surprise on my face. I thought the oil had all gone. No, there's low. Look, it's gone all over the workshop floor. And you can see the look on my face of, damn, I best get out of the way. And even that underlay that my brother gave me got coated as well. Yeah, look, a tsunami of oil. You wouldn't believe that amount of oil was left inside. I got the torch on it because I wanted to see. And I can see actually from here, because Tim Vine actually said that you should make a note of which way it came out so you know where the oil pickup is. So yeah, I'm pleased I got this footage actually, because I can see where the oil pickup is. But yeah, what a mucky old job. And sadly, as you can see, it is now just like a tsunami of oil going everywhere. You just wouldn't believe genuinely that amount of oil was still left in there. And this was going to turn out to be a much, much more messier job than I genuinely planned it to be. Yeah, so I'm going to throw this in as the very final footage as it cascades itself all the way over the floor of the barn. Luckily I've got loads of spill dry and other stuff to get it off, but it was so cold that you know, putting sort of some detergent under and then trying to wash it off didn't prove well. Plus the fact, which you can't see in this shot, I actually, when I removed it, I ended up with a trail of oil all over the floor. But anyway, has to be done. Right, so here's the oil strainer outside the bus on a fresh piece of masking paper. It was going to get really messy. There's a lot of really nasty splodge there, as you can see in this picture. It's really quite gooey, and that gooey stuff at the bottom was what gave us some cause for alarm. But it is really, and despite the fact I changed the oil on this the other day as well, but obviously hasn't had a chance to circulate around the engine because we haven't had it started. Yeah, but it was more gunky than I imagined. The other one that those of you with an engineering background will go, hang on a minute, where's the gasket? I assume the gasket that goes around the periphery is still up on the bus, and I can have a look at that and see if I can recover it. If not, I'm going to make a gasket for it, because these are sort of things you can't get. So yeah, I mean, more than likely have to make a gasket for it. Right, even before I start to clean it up, you notice there's some detritus already on the top of it. Some of that could well be caked oil and carbon. Don't know what it is, to be quite honest with you, but I've scraped it all off, and we found some more. I found some more in there, but anyway, it is a start, and I'm pleased that we've done this, because if we hadn't have done it, then that stuff would have been floating around in the bottom of the engine. The chances are there's more like that in there, and I just hope it hasn't blocked some of the critical oil ways, like those that go to the crankshaft and the ones that go to the valves. If it has blocked those, then we're going to have to take the engine out, and we're going to have a very expensive overhaul on our hands. I just hope we can get away with it. And everyone is saying, take the rocker cover off and have a look and see what the valves look like, because if the valves are not getting any oil and they're dry, then we've got blocked oil ways, and then that's a sign I have to take the engine out. But it isn't something I want to do, and I really do want to get this started up this year, because it is the bus's birthday in February. Right, this is the beginning of the clean-up operation. I've got a little bit of blue roll in my hand there. That's what that blue stuff is in one hand. And what I'm trying to do is just to remove a bit of the excess oil. And I think I had gone round out with a scraper as well just a few minutes before. But what I want to try and do is get access to the 4 bolts that hold the strainer in situ, and that strainer is slightly suspended off the bottom of that base plate there. So what I need to do is get those 4 nuts off. Unfortunately, they all had split pins, and getting to the split pins proved to be a real difficult job, and my pliers ended up absolutely coated in oil. So yeah, and I don't like doing this kind of work, to be honest with you. This is not fun. I don't mind messing around with paint, but messing around with dirty old oil, it's just not fun. Right, so here it is, completely disassembled. The plate on the left hand side is the base plate that, as you're looking at it, this would be the underside of the bus. Then the next one is the top cover for the oil strainer, and then the second thing is the bottom of the oil strainer, and that is held just slightly off the bottom of that base plate there by those 2 bits of metal, those 2 strips of metal, sort of top and bottom. I don't know what those 2 squares are. We couldn't quite work them out. We were sitting there looking at them. They're not repairs to like a punctured cage, because there's no holes in it. So no idea. Answers on a postcard. And then the right hand side is those 2 final clips that held the lid on of the oil strainer. So that really is the oil strainer. So I'm hoping, I've taken that cover into work, and I'm going to use a steam cleaner to clean it off, to get the remainder off. But I've got all the oil off those other two main bits, so all of that is clean now and ready to be reassembled back on the bus once I bought the base plate back. But that's going to be a job for another day. Yeah, like I said before, it's not a job I thoroughly enjoy doing, but has to be done, and given what we found in there, I think really it was a worthwhile job. Right, shall we wrap then on episode 55 at nearly 20 minutes? So thanks very much for viewing. I'll leave you with the spider's web that I found on the gate when I arrived on Sunday morning. I think even the spider has buggered off, but yeah, no luck there. I'm working on episode 50, which is the update on all the stuff, as a recap, sorry, on all the stuff that I did last year. Still working on that one, got quite a bit to put together, so hopefully it doesn't end up as a long epic. So once again, thanks very much for watching, guys and girls, and YouTube as usual, will recommend some of these that you might find interesting, or you might not. You may want to go off and do something perhaps even more constructive. Who knows? I look forward to doing next week's one.